What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Oak Tree Football Channel. NFL is just over 1 week away, and today I'm going to be continuing my predictions like I have been for the past few days. I recently did my NFC South predictions and my NFC West predictions. Today I'm going to be doing my NFC North predictions. Now, last year, the NFC North was a very weak division, and everybody really knows that. Most people think it will be the weakest again this year. I don't think it will be the weakest because I think there are actually some really good teams in it, but there are definitely some poor teams in this division. But it's going to be interesting to see the standings, but I feel it's kind of obvious how you rank them. But it's just going to be interesting to see the teams' records. But without further ado, let's get into it, starting off with number 4. And at number 4, I have the Washington football team, formerly the Washington Redskins. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the worst teams in the league. I think they were the worst team in the league until the Jaguars cut Leonard Fournette and traded Yannick Ngakoue. So I don't think they're going to be very good this year, to be honest. I have them finishing at 13-3, which is one of the worst records in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised to see them having the first pick in the draft. I just don't really think they're that good of a team. At quarterback, they have Dwayne Haskins. I actually like Dwayne Haskins, but it's just not the strongest team overall. But they also have Alex Smith, who has been getting some practices in lately. He, of course, had that terrible injury. I believe it was almost 2 years ago at this point. Washington was having a fantastic season, but then when he got injured, it's turned downhill. If they can get him on the field, they could win some more games than expected this season, but I still would think they would be pretty bad this season, but it would definitely be better if they had Alex Smith at quarterback. Dwayne Haskins isn't really a bad quarterback in my opinion, but last year he did not play well. I think he can improve this year, but not much. Running back is pretty strong, I think. Adrian Peterson's a veteran, one of the best running backs of all time. He's not as good as he once was, but he definitely still can get the job done. They have rookie Antonio Gibson. They have, I believe, second-year Bryce Love, maybe third year. They also signed Peyton Barber, who I think can be pretty good for them when he plays. It's not the strongest running back group, but it's definitely not too weak. Wide receiver, they have Terry McLaurin as one of their wide receivers. He's their wide receiver 1. I really like McLaurin as a player. He is one of the best players in this team. I think he's going to have a very good season. Wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe even get to the Pro Bowl. They also have Kelvin Harmon and Trey Quinn. I actually like Trey Quinn as a player, not as much Kelvin Harmon. It's an okay receiving group. Definitely could be better, though. Tight end, they have Jeremy Sprinkle. He is okay, but he's not a real starting tight end. You won't want him as your starting tight end, but he's a pretty good red zone threat. Their offensive line is okay. They do have a few good players in that offensive line, but it definitely has its weak points. Brandon Sheriff is on that offensive line. He's a pretty good player, but there definitely are some weak points. So that's the offense. Looking at the defense, on the defensive line, at the defensive end position, they have Montez Sweat, who I think is a pretty good player, and they have Chase Young, the rookie. Obviously, one of the best players in this class. I think he was the best player in this class, best player in this draft class, taken second overall. And he could be a very good player, but he has not been very good in the practices, so I don't think we're going to see anything special from him. I still think he's a fantastic player, and I think he will have a pretty good career, but he's been not great in practices, so maybe off to a slow start of the season. Defensive tackle, they have Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. Both of those guys are solid. They're definitely not incredible players, but they're both solid. Linebackers, Ryan Kerrigan, Thomas Davis. Some veterans there, but not necessarily the best players. Safety, they have Landon Collins and Sean Davis. I actually like Landon Collins, but a few years ago with the Giants, he was really good, but he's not as good anymore. And then at cornerback, they're headlined by Kendall Fuller, who is a pretty good player, but not much else. So they definitely do have some very talented players, but it's a pretty weak team overall. And I think they will finish 13-3, bottom of the NFC East. Next up, coming in with a record of 5-11, I have the New York Giants. I don't think the New York Giants are that good of a team. I definitely think they do have some very good players, which I'll get to in a second. But it's still a pretty weak team, to be honest. I was really close to putting them at 4-12, but I think they'll get one kind of upset win. But it's a pretty weak team. They definitely have a lot of missing pieces. But looking at quarterback, they have Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones was not necessarily impressive in his first season, but he was better than expected. So I think he can be okay. I don't think he's going to be an elite quarterback by any means, but I don't really think he'll be bad. I just think he'll be about average, and I think that's kind of how his career will go. I don't think he'll be a bad quarterback, just about average. Running back, they have Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, in my opinion, is like second or third best running back in the NFL. Definitely top 5. He's incredible when he's healthy. I mean, last year he had a lot of injuries, but when he played, he was really good. And same with his rookie season. I think this is going to be his biggest season yet because he was a rookie 2 years ago, and last season he was injured. This season, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be fantastic. He could be a Pro Bowl player, and I wouldn't be surprised. They have some good backups for him as well. Dion Lewis, who was with the New England Patriots a few years ago, and then the Tennessee Titans last year, I believe. They also have Wayne Gallman, so it's an okay running back group. But Saquon Barkley is just a fantastic player, and I expect some big season from him. Wide receiver, they have Golden Tate, a veteran. Tate isn't really who you'd want as your starting receiver, but he is a veteran, and he is okay. He's not a bad player, but he's more of a veteran presence for this team, I would guess. They also have Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard, 2 younger guys. Shepard's been in the league for a few years, but Slayton, I believe, is going into his second season. He was good as a rookie, and Shepard is a pretty good player as well. So it's an okay receiving group. Similar to running back, they have a few good players there, but it definitely could be better. Tight end, they have Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram is honestly one of the better tight ends in the NFL, so they're really good at that position. He's fast. He's one of the fastest tight ends in the NFL, so that's good for them. I expect a lot of targets for him this season on a pretty big year. They also have Caden Smith, who gets in the field sometimes at tight end. And then offensive line, their offensive line definitely got better, but it's not the best. They have Andrew Thomas, who they drafted, I believe, with the 4th pick in this draft. He's pretty good. They have Will Hernandez, who I think can be a good player, but we'll have to see how he does. They also drafted Matt Pert this year, I believe, in the 3rd round. So they drafted heavily on the offensive line. They also drafted two backup offensive linemen, so they really want help on that offensive line. And I think they may be able to get some help this year, but their offensive line hasn't been great recently, and I don't think it'll be much better. Looking at the defense, I believe it was mid last season, they traded for Leonard Williams on the defensive end position, and they also have Dexter Lawrence at defensive end, so pretty good defensive ends. I wouldn't really think of those players as some of the best in the league, but they're definitely not bad. At defensive tackle, they have Dalvin Tomlinson. Tomlinson is okay player. I don't think he's bad, but I definitely don't consider him to be great. They also have at linebacker Marcus Golden, David Mayo, Blake Martinez, who is actually a very, very good player. So he's going to be one of the main players in this defense, and Lorenzo Carter. All those are okay, other than Blake Martinez. I think he's really, really good. It could be better, but it's definitely not bad. They're looking at cornerback. Cornerback is not great. James Bradbury, he does have some veteran experience, so it's good to have him on the team, but not really anyone else at cornerback. Safety, they have Jabril Peppers, who was drafted by the Browns a few years ago. I actually like Jabril Peppers as a player. I think he could have a pretty big season this year. And then at free safety, they have both Julian Love and Xavier McKinney, the rookie. I really, really like McKinney. I think he should play. I honestly think he could be a contender for Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think he'll win it, but I think if he plays, he could be a contender. So, similar to Washington, it's an okay team. I think it's better than Washington, but yeah, I still think it's great, and that is why I have them finishing 5-11. Now, moving on to number 2. The first 2 teams, number 3 and 4, I don't think they're going to be that good this season, but number 1 and 2, I think are going to be really good. I both have them winning double-digit games this season. So coming in at number 2 with a record of 10-6, I have the Dallas Cowboys. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to improve this season, but for me, they're kind of a hit-or-miss team. I think they're really talented, but I could really, really see them struggling, especially with some of the players. Dak Prescott, he's a good quarterback at times, but he hasn't really always been the best. And there are a few other positions like that, but I still think this is a strong team. I think they will make the playoffs, especially with the introduction of a 7th team. They are a very talented team. I don't think they're the most talented in the division, but I think they're really good. So at quarterback, they have Dak Prescott, and they signed Andy Dalton, which is pretty interesting. Dak Prescott's a very good quarterback when he plays like it. I mean, he hasn't reached his full potential, but he can be a very good player. He's interesting. At times, he's one of the best, but, he can play not ideal at times. But I still think he's a very good player, and I think he can have a pretty good season this year. Running back, they have Ezekiel Elliott. Elliott is one of the better running backs in the league, probably a top 5 running back. Maybe you can make an argument that he's number 6, but he's still definitely a very, very good player. He'll probably hit 1,000 yards again this year. He's been consistently good. His best season was his rookie year, but he's still been a consistently good running back, so should be another big season from him. Wide receiver, The backup wide receivers aren't great, but the 3 starters are fantastic. Michael Gallup, not many people know about this guy, but he's actually pretty good when he plays. Amari Cooper is just a fantastic player. He's really, really good, and he makes fantastic plays. He's been so good for the Cowboys since he came. And then CeeDee Lamb, the rookie. In my opinion, CeeDee Lamb is was the best wide receiver in this year's draft class. Some people would argue against that, but I do think he was the best. Looking at tight end, Blake Jarwin, not the best tight end, but definitely not bad. Offensive line is really, really good. Tyrone Smith and La'el Collins are the tackles. Zach Martin and Connor Williams are the guards, and Joe Looney is the center. There definitely are some weaker points in that line, but it's still a very good line, and it should do very good for Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott this year. Looking on the defense, at defensive end, they recently signed Everson Griffin, which is a huge signing for them, and DeMarcus Lawrence. So Everson Griffin is a really, really good player. And that was a pretty good signing, I think. And getting DeMarcus Lawrence is a fantastic player. They've had him for a few years now. And he's going to be a big help for this Cowboys defense. He's one of the best players. At defensive tackle, they have Dontari Poe. I like Dontari Poe. He was very good a few years ago for, I believe, the Kansas City Chiefs. Hasn't been as good since, but he's still a pretty good defensive tackle. Linebacker is fantastic. They have some of the best linebackers in the NFL. Leighton Vander Esch, who was drafted in 2018. Jalen Smith and Sean Lee, the veteran. Fantastic linebacking group. Easily one of the best in the NFL. Leighton Vander Esch is an absolute machine. Sean Lee is a good veteran presence. As long as he stays healthy, he's a really, really good player. And Jalen Smith is a great player as well. So this is a very strong linebacking group. Cornerbacks, they have Chidobe Awuzie, who I think is okay. And they have Anthony Brown and Trayvon Diggs. Not the best cornerback group, I'm not going to lie, but it should be able to get the job done. And then safeties, they have Xavier Woods and HaHa Clinton Dix. I like both those guys. I think they're pretty good safeties. So it is a very, very strong team for the Dallas Cowboys. I would not be surprised to see them winning this division. But in my opinion, they are the second best. But I still think they're a great team. I think they'll make the playoffs, and I have them going 10-6. And now moving on to number 1, you probably already know who it is. Coming in with a record of 11-5, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this is one of the best Philadelphia Eagles teams we've seen probably since they won the Super Bowl, and I really do believe that. I was close to putting this team at 12-4, but they weren't very good last year, and I think they'll lose one game. They maybe won't, and people would probably agree with me that 11-5 seems like a good record prediction for them. I definitely think they'll make the playoffs, whether that will be winning the division or wild card. It's between them and the Cowboys to win the division, and then I think the other one will get a wild card, to be honest. At quarterback, they have Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is such an underrated quarterback. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I really, really believe that. I don't understand why people say he's a bad quarterback. I understand people may not agree that he's one of the better quarterbacks in the league like I do, but people that say he's a bad quarterback, that's just not true. Sure, he gets injured a lot, but he is a fantastic quarterback, and he's going to have a big season, to be honest. He really elevates the play of his team. I mean, last year he was playing with players like Greg Ward Jr., practice squad players from the Eagles that you probably never have heard of, and he was still threw 4,000 pass yards, and with 0 500-yard receivers, he threw 4,000 pass yards. I believe he threw 27 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, which was one of the better ratios in the NFL, and he's done that consistently since he was a rookie. Not his rookie season, but after that. He's just been a fantastic player, and I don't understand why people think he's not good. Running back, they have Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is really good. He was taken in last year's draft in the second round. I think he's going to have a big year, and they have some good backups for him, like Boston Scott and Corey Clement. So all those 3 guys are very talented, and I think they can have good seasons this year. Wide receiving group, they have a pretty good wide receiving group. Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson, the 2 starters. And then they have a few other guys at that position as well. They drafted John Hightower, who in the 5th round, I believe, who I actually think can be a very, very good receiver. At times, I don't think he's going to be anything special, but he was pretty good for Boise State. He's a very good deep target. They have J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who, he wasn't great last year, but I think he can get better. They have Greg Ward Jr., of course, who was one of the leading receivers last year. So it's a very good receiving group overall. Tight end, in my opinion, they do have the best tight end group in the NFL with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. I don't think Zach Ertz is the best tight end. I think that's either George Kittle or Travis Kelce. But I think this is the best overall tight end group because I think Dallas Goedert's a very good tight end as well. Their offensive line is very, very good. Jason Peters, he's older, and he hasn't always been able to stay healthy, but when he's healthy, he is a pretty solid player. They have Lane Johnson, who is a very good tackle, right tackle in my opinion. Andre Dillard, who can be good. He was drafted in the first round last year. Isaac Seumalo, he's been solid, and then at center they have Jason Kelce. He is probably the best center in the NFL, to be honest. He's a fantastic center. Looking at the defense, at defensive end, they have Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham is a fantastic player. He's a veteran, been in the league since 2010. He's an incredible player. He could get double-digit sacks potentially this year. They have Derek Barnett as well, who was drafted in 2017. He hasn't really lived up to the first-round expectations, but he has still been solid, so I expect an okay season from him. Defensive tackle Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. That is a fantastic offensive line, or defensive line when you really look at it. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, and Derek Barnett. They signed Javon Hargrave from the Steelers. I think he can be a very big player for them. I think he's very talented. And Fletcher Cox has been elite for a few years now. He's a fantastic player, one of the better on defense. Linebacking group is not great, I'm going to be honest. Duke Riley, TJ Edwards, and Nathan Jerry. None of those names really stand out to me. I know them all, but none of them really stand out. So linebacking core is a bit weak. At cornerback, they have Darius Slay, who they just traded for. That was a fantastic trade for them. And Nicole Roby-Coleman, who is shorter, I believe, but he is still a pretty good cornerback. And then at safety, they converted Jalen Mills to safety and Rodney McLeod. So it's a pretty good safety group, pretty good cornerback group. I think this is a very strong team. I think it's the strongest in this division, and I think it can be a playoff team, and I have them winning the division with a record of 11-5. So those were my predictions for the NFC East this season. What are you guys' predictions? Tell me in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. And if you're new around here, feel free to subscribe for more NFL and college football content. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next video.